Well, let's get started then. Well, good afternoon. It's going to take a while for me to get used to the echo off of that back wall, so if I'm speaking slowly, it's so I can hear myself. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for coming. How's the conference going so far? We're a little more than halfway through it. Good. You know, I'm really trying to get a sense for how many people are in this room. It's such a big room. Of course, we never sit close to each other at these things, you know, this personal space thing. My name is Paul Turley. I'm a mentor with SolidQ, a company formerly known as Solid Quality Mentoring. We do consulting and training, mainly on the Microsoft BI technologies, but also all things SQL Server, but we are exclusively dedicated to the Microsoft platform. I've been in the Microsoft development database reporting BI space for about 18 years, and I've been working with reporting services in particular and the other BI tools since, well, about 7, 8 years now. And I've spoken at a few of these conferences. I spoke at TechEd / the BI conference last year, and I'm a regular speaker at the past conferences as well. Been doing that for about 6 years. And it's great to be here. I'm from Vancouver, Washington, which is real close to Portland, Oregon. We're the other Vancouver. We were first, actually. But you're from Vancouver, Washington, really? You're serious? Oh, Canada. Okay, all right. Yeah, I forgive you. You'll forgive me. All right. Well, so let's get started. We're going to talk about different kinds of report designs. And if I don't move my computer bag, I'm going to fall flat on my face. I just want to kind of level set and talk about expectations for this presentation today. I submitted 5 abstracts to TechEd, and 2 were selected. And what I find interesting is that this is very much a technical conference, thus TechEd, and a lot of you, of course, have a technical background. You may be developers or IT pros of some kind. And the 2 topics that were selected were absolutely not technical at all. And this is not a technical presentation at all. I'm going to walk through some report design techniques, but we're not going to write any code. We're not going to look at expressions. We're not going to write queries. We're not really going to dig deep into the technical aspects of report design. So if you were here for that and that was your expectation, just know that that's not what this session is about. I had submitted abstracts on designing reports with MDX and advanced report design and design patterns and recipes, but there are other people at the conference that are talking about those things. I have worked pretty closely with the reporting services team. I've done project work on-site at Microsoft. And so I've been pretty connected with the folks that actually develop reporting services and some of the other BI tools, and very respectful of what these folks do. I really have a lot of loyalty to this platform because I have a lot of respect for the people who develop it and the people who make it happen. So let's talk a little bit about the types of reports and analytics that we typically see. We can break down reports that are used in business into 3 categories that I call operational reporting, strategic analytic reporting, and tactical analytic reporting. And if you were at the interactive session earlier, I do have a couple of the same slides, but they're not all the same slides. So I did actually repurpose this particular slide. So don't get up and leave and, you know, hey, the guy didn't even prepare 2 sessions. So operational reporting really describes kind of mainstream reporting. And if you look back in history and how businesses consumed reports, this is what we typically think of. You know, they're columnar, they're very static, maybe designed to be printed. I remember doing a project for a large paper company, and I was actually on site at a paper mill. And I went in and I designed a reporting solution, much like I would for any other client, when they said, well, we want you to design this screen when the user clicks this button, we want it to run the report. And by run the report, I thought that meant, oh, well, that means you're going to preview it, and then you'll have the option to print. And I put the preview button on there, and then I showed it to the project sponsor. And remember, this is a paper company at a paper mill. And he goes, well, what's the preview button for? I said, oh, that's so that you can display the report on the screen. That way you're not wasting paper. Wrong answer. They said, what's this crazy idea of telling people not to use paper? That's just crazy. And strategic analytic reporting is a type of analytic reporting where we're measuring against our targets. And this is probably the most common type of analytical reporting, where our business leaders and managers and people will look at dashboards and look at reports where we may be doing some trend analysis, but we're typically using KPIs to measure against some kind of a predetermined goal or target. And then tactical analytical reporting is about being very, very proactive and kind of looking into the future at trends and marketing trends and where our business is going. And that's where we define those targets and goals. There are two different kind of mediums of reports. Prepared reports, those that IT typically develops and then deploys out to a server somewhere. It could be a document library or a custom application or a folder in the report server. And then our users go out and they consume those reports. And then we have this other kinds of reporting medium where it's very user-driven, where the user goes to a place and then they consume data. They may just browse that data, or they may write their own reports, they may save those reports, or they may throw them away. And then finally, we have two different classifications of portals and dashboards or places that people go for their reporting. One is the enterprise, and those are typically the sanctioned, formalized, stamp of approval. IT put them through a rigorous test and validated the design, made sure that the data was correct. The business also gave the stamp of approval. So that's the single version of the truth, as Ralph Kimball would say. And then there's departmental and functional portals, and we could add to that personal portals. So the place where I go for my reports, and they may not necessarily be blessed by the business, but nonetheless, that's where I can do my own reporting. So when we design anything, these three principles come into play. You could talk about software, building cars, building bridges, anything. These are three very, very basic principles that have to be considered: form, fit, and function. And I learned this when I did some work at Hewlett-Packard. This was a real big part of their culture, where when they designed, they were always kind of doing this check. You know, is it the right form? Is it the right fit? Is it the right function? What does that mean? And what kind of skill sets are necessary to deliver form, fit, and function? Well, when I sit down with a consulting client and we talk about building a business or analytics solution, typically the first discussion that we have is, what are the business requirements? In other words, what is the business fit? What is the need in terms of what questions do we have? What's our problem? What's our challenge? Where's the gap? And then how are we going to deliver information, numbers, that answer those questions and fill that gap? And so the business people typically think about, I don't care what it looks like, I just want this number. I just need the answer to this question. Function has to do with how it's going to be delivered. And the skill set is typically a technical perspective. And so traditionally, this is handed off to IT. We write a business requirement. And then from that, we evolve a technical specification or requirement. And then a programmer, a technical person, figures out how to implement that. So how is it going to function? How is that information going to be delivered? Is it going to have dynamic functionality? Will it have drill down or drill through or some kind of dynamic capability? And technically, how is it going to be designed? And my experience has been that generally, 90% of the time, we consider these two axes, and then we build the thing, we design, we develop, we test, we find bugs, we go back, we fix them, we put it through a couple of cycles, and we're right up to our deadline, and then at the last minute, somebody says, oh my gosh, we need to style the thing. We need to make it look good. And it's often an afterthought, but from the perspective of our user, it's very important. And the person who will typically do that is going to be someone who has visual design skills. And I'll tell you a real quick story in a second about how I learned about how important this was. Now, I'm not going to spend time going through this slide deck, but this is just an outline of what I'm going to talk about through the rest of the session. But I want to start with a couple of bullet points at the very top. Know your audience. Understand your audience's perspective. Understand what's important to them. Understand what their objectives are. And at the beginning of any project, we usually have this discussion about, okay, what do you really want? What do you need? All right, you're asking me for 50 things. If I can only deliver 10, what are they? So where's that list? And a lot of you have been in sessions with Microsoft product groups, and you're saying, hey, how come your product doesn't have this feature? You know, you should consider adding this feature. You know, I think it stinks now, and if it had this other feature, you know, I think it'd be great. And the way that the product teams typically operate is they have a list, and it's a linear list of wishes and wants and feature requests. And they prioritize them, and the important stuff rises to the top, and then they look at their ship dates, they look at their available resources, and they draw a line, and they say, okay, we're going to ship with these features. And then in the next version, we'll go ahead and consider the other features. We'll reprioritize a little bit, but it's important that you understand your audience, understand what's important to them, and understand their objectives. Okay, and we'll come back, well, I'll review these real quickly. Maintain balance, consider the trade-offs in your report design. And one of the considerations and trade-offs is, do I build one report per requirement? So if I have 100 people asking for reports that are slightly different requirements, do I build 100 different reports? Or do I find a way to consolidate all of those requirements and try to build more complex, more capable, more flexible reports that can deliver most of those requirements? And sometimes there's a little bit of a trade-off there. But it's always a negotiation. Don't take the visual metaphors too far. Always use proofs of concept. Always, always, always use a proof of concept. And when you go to design a proof of concept, set the expectation with your consumer that it is a proof of concept. Anyone familiar with a book written in the 70s called The Mythical Man Month? Frederick Brooks. It's a book that's been around for a long, long time, and in project management classes they talk about these concepts. Brooks was a chemical engineer. And one of his mantras was, anything that you design, you're going to design 6 times. So be prepared to throw it away at least 5 times. And that is so true, especially in our business. And so set that expectation that, yeah, okay, I think I get the concept in my head. I think I understand your requirements. I'm going to go build something quickly that I'll use just to try to get some feedback from you and share with you my version of the concept. And you're going to tell me whether or not I'm right, or whether I'm on target, whether I'm close or not. And then whether you like it or not, even if you love it, we're still going to throw it away because that was designed with the intent of not shipping it. We didn't document our code. We didn't apply best practices. We just kind of made it up as, you know, I wrote it at 2 a.m. and wasn't really paying attention. Always get a second opinion, accept feedback, and be willing to learn. All right. So there are a couple of people kind of in this space of visual design who are really well known. And one of them is a Yale professor by the name of Edward Tufte. Now, Tufte is not a technical guy. In fact, he doesn't even really like Microsoft. And he's made that very clear, that he just doesn't like anything that Microsoft has ever created. But he is very well known for teaching and conveying the concepts of visual design. And he has 7 books on the topic. And he actually came up with this concept of a spark line. And I think the reason that the spark line has become such a focal point is that it conveys the concept that I can take a lot of information and display it in a small space and remove all of the clutter around it, and it has value. But it doesn't tell the entire story. And that's the important point, is that you can't always tell the whole story when you have a lot of information to convey. I'm going to translate his definition of a spark line, which was a small, high-resolution graphic embedded in a context of words, numbers, and images, to a chart with no cluttered details, scales, or labels. So I went into my collection of dashboard screenshots and examples of reports that I've seen developed and some that I've developed, and I pulled out a couple of screenshots. Here's one of them. This is a dashboard report that has a bunch of charts on it. A useful report. We actually delivered this to a client. They were very happy with the work. Is that a spark line, or are those spark lines? What do you think? Okay, why not? A lot of detail. Sure. So these might be absolutely perfect for the requirement, for the need, but they're not spark lines. Here's an example. This is a dashboard that I had developed for a client. You can see there are a lot of trend charts and bars and things. Same thing. We've got scales and tick marks and other things that definitely not sparklines. Here's an example of sparklines. So you can see on the right side, I have this little line chart that has absolutely no point of reference. So standing alone, it doesn't deliver all of the information. But what does it convey? Okay? I can't hear you as well as you can hear me. It's a big room. Okay, trends. Sure, trends. I can see that things are going up and down. Okay, and that's useful. I don't know whether it's down here or up here. And this might be an example of what I call the USA Today chart. And I don't mean to criticize USA Today or any other publication, but you know, oftentimes you see on the front page of USA Today, there'll be a little chart in the upper left-hand corner, and it just shows whatever it is: stock prices, oil prices, you know, gas prices, you know, just skyrocketing, going way, way up and then way, way down. And then if you were to step back and add the 0 point to that axis, you'd see that it was just the top 5%. You know, so it's kind of dramatic. It conveyed a message, but it didn't tell the whole story. And that might be true of these sparklines. And so our user could drill through to a more detailed chart, or they could get more information from other things on the report. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a quick demonstration. And I know that a lot of you do use reporting services or have used reporting services. Just from a show of hand, who has used any version of reporting services? Okay, almost everybody. Okay, the other way around. Who has not used reporting services? Okay. So a lot of this is going to be a little elementary to you. Again, we're talking about the visual nature of design. We're not talking about the guts of technical design, but I do want to just show off sparklines here real quick. So this is a very simple thing to do. Switch over here to so I'm in SharePoint integrated mode, and I'm going to create a report builder report. This is the same demo that I did in the earlier session, so I'm just going to blast through it here real quickly. But as you know, we have 2 report design tools in the current version of reporting services, and have for a couple of versions now. So we've always had the Business Intelligence Development Studio, which is the report designer integrated into the Visual Studio shell. And quite a while ago, they introduced a tool called Report Builder and Report Models. That was a little more of an experiment than a huge evolution in the product. There was some value there, but I think that some lessons were learned. And eventually we got Report Builder 2, which was really just an alternate report designer to create the same kind of reports, RDL professional reports. And I like using Report Builder as a developer, as a technical person. I like using Report Builder. There's some things that it doesn't do that BIDS does, like version control and project management. But Report Builder is a fantastic tool. So there are really kind of 3 different perspectives as far as who might design reports with Report Builder. I have the technologist who's going to create the connection, create the data set, write the query, write the parameters, and then build the report around that. Then I have the savvy business user who can consume a shared data set, and that's the role that I'm playing right now. I have this data set, which is really just a query with a data source that's been deployed out to SharePoint in this case, but it could be in standalone mode as well, out on the report server. And I'm just going to grab that data set, and I'm going to design a report around it. And then I'm going to show you kind of the third level of the less sophisticated user who doesn't need to understand things like fields and tables and things like that. So just grab that shared data source. I'm sorry. I knew I'd do that. Shared data set, and we'll just drag our value and goal down here and our country over there, and then I can just quickly finish out the wizard. We'll style that as US dollars. Go ahead and run the report. Okay, so there's a nice, clean, very simple report that has some business value, and then I'm going to add a sparkline to it. So we'll go up to Insert and drop a sparkline. So a sparkline really is just kind of a mini chart. And any of you who have worked with the current generation of charts, gauges, and maps know that these are very, very capable design objects that have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of properties that are organized in these hierarchies of objects. And who has ever spent, I don't know, been up past 1 a.m. trying to design a chart in reporting services? Tweaking it and adding borders and thinking, I really want to get that property set, and I don't know where it is, so I'm going to dig and dig and dig and dig until I find it. Then you find it, and then you forget where it is, and then you have to go back and do the same thing again. So I've done that countless times. So there's my sparkline. So when I click on it, I get the same little drop zones in the designer that I would have if I were creating the full chart, but this is just kind of a lightweight chart. It's a mini chart that isn't quite as sophisticated or complicated. So I'm just going to add one of my measure fields, and then I'll group that on fiscal week, run the report, and I should have a nice table report with a sparkline. Okay, so that's kind of my entry point. That's a pretty valuable report. But let's kind of switch roles now, and I could save that out to this library very easily and go back and run it again. But I'm going to switch roles, and I'm now going to be that less savvy user. And you know what? I just realized that I'm supposed to be doing this demo later on. So my wife would call this an ADD moment, but I forgot to do something in the introduction. Does anybody know what today is? 31 years ago, something very significant happened in this country. Mount St. Helens. Where are you from? Okay. Well, yeah, Mount St. Helens erupted. Were you looking at my task manager down here? Okay. All right. Well, I live 40 miles away from Mount St. Helens, and I was there when it happened. And I remember Sunday morning on May 18th, 1980, when my dad woke me up. I'd been out really late at night the night before, and he woke me up and he said, Paul, you need to look out the window. And this is what we saw, and it was cool. And for the next week or so, we watched this, and that was a pretty neat experience. And so I always reminisce a little bit on May 18th about Mount St. Helens. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a blank report now. And again, I'm playing the role of this very unsophisticated user now. And I know from the little bit of training that I've had that I can build reports just by dragging and dropping stuff. And I don't really need to know how things work, but I can just build a very simple report. By using this report part gallery thingy. And that's just components of previous reports that my IT professionals created for me that have some business value that can be shared out to the business community. And I, as a business consumer, can simply drag and drop and create some pretty cool reports. So I'll go ahead and add my sparkline report over. Oops. Why is that happening? What am I doing? Yeah, it worked that time. Yeah. You know what happened? Bob Myers just walked in the room from the product team. My demos always stop when a member of the product team walks in the room. All right. So I have a chart that I've created that has some parameters associated with it. I'll go and resize that a little bit. Give that a second to resize. All right, and then this is my favorite component. So this is a map report part that I had created. And we'll go ahead and just run that entire report. And I know that you've seen a lot of these demonstrations before, and we may be a little slightly off topic, but I just kind of wanted to level set the kinds of experiences that report designers can have, be they business users or somewhat technical savvy business users who may be part of a business unit, a business department, or true IT pros and developers. And so here you see that I have a bullet graph or bullet chart. It is made out of a linear gauge. I have a line chart. This line chart is actually fairly sophisticated. So you can see that I have a range of days down here that actually are January. I know that font's difficult to read from there. But I can say, well, I want to start on February 1st, and I want to see that compared to the previous month. And so you see the heavy blue line up here, which is kind of color coordinated with the light blue line behind it. And what that tells me is that here's my sales trend for whatever measure I had selected, my internet sales amount for the current period from February 1st to 30 days after. And then that's compared to the previous month. Okay, so visually, that's pretty easy to figure out. It's a pretty easy visual paradigm. And with very little training or maybe just a little self-exploration, users can typically figure that out. Just kind of show off my map report down here. This is actually a prototype that we did for a Microsoft product team just a couple weeks ago, where they wanted to be able to visualize market share of certain Microsoft products. And they said, well, we have these countries that are grouped into regions, and the regions have these little short abbreviated names, and we wanted to be able to visualize what our market share was in those regions. And so we actually put all of this into a table. So I actually have the geospatial information representing the world and the countries. And we didn't have this concept of regions, and so just using a table and a simple relationship, we said, okay, well, here's a list of the countries in a certain region, and then using the map component with a little bit of logic, we're able to kind of color in all of the countries for that region. And then we designated a country in the middle of the region, and we put the bubble on that. So, again, real nice visual. So what I wanted to point out in this simple report is that I don't have a lot of Chrome here. I don't have dark backgrounds. I don't have heavy borders. So the eye goes to the report element. It goes to the information. It doesn't go to the header. It doesn't go to the border. It doesn't go to these things that our brains typically have to kind of read through and say, okay, I'll dismiss that, dismiss that, dismiss that. Oh, there's the important information that I need. So let me jump back to our slides. And let me just talk through a couple of dashboard examples. So some of these were created with reporting services. Some of them were created with Excel or with Performance Point. But they're all visuals that can be created in a variety of different reporting tools. So this was actually a real dashboard for a restaurant chain here in the United States. You can see that I have some scorecards up here with, there's some trend arrows. It looks like they're not doing very well at this particular period of time. And again, we have the bullet graphs. And then these are performance point charts, both a bar chart and a line chart. Here's another real dashboard created for a consulting client. Again, performance point bars and some scorecards. So the theme here is very, very clean. And my rule of thumb, and I don't know that this is printed anywhere, my rule of thumb is that if you're creating an executive dashboard, the concept of a dashboard is that a business leader or a business consumer of some kind is going to look at that, and they need to get the most important information first. So my rule of thumb is they should be able to glance at it and in 5 seconds take away the most important information. Not everything. Unless somebody has a freakish photographic memory, in 5 seconds they're not going to consume the whole thing. But they should be able to get some important information from that visual in 5 seconds. That's not true of operational reportings and reports and all kinds of reports, but it is definitely true of dashboards. Here again is a sophisticated chart that has a lot of information on it. But again, if I know what to look for, I know that the heavy blue line represents a certain type of sales trend. I know that the stack bars represent something else. I should be able to consume that pretty quickly and then drill into it and explore if I need more details. So, the principles of styling and color. Styling an image, and my definition of image is like marketing image, are more important than many technical experts, and I struggled with using this word, but I did anyway, can realize. What do I mean by that? A lot of us are real technical people, all right? We are really good at processing requirements and logic and figuring things out and solving problems in that manner. Why is styling and color and composition and balance and those kinds of things, why is that such a struggle for technical people? It's not tough enough? It's not technical. Yeah, it's not technical. Okay, I don't think I need to explain this graphic. All right, we all get this concept, and most of us live over there in that orange part. Okay, because we're very analytical. We figure things out. So I'll tell you a really quick story. So I worked on the Microsoft CRM product team as a contractor, and back in 2004-ish, CRM was in version 1.1, transitioning to 1.2. So in the 1.2 product, they wanted to deliver reporting services reports. They'd been using Crystal reports. Microsoft and Crystal Decisions used to have a real close alignment. That's why the Crystal had been baked into Visual Studio and Visual Basic. But then they got sold and acquired, and now they're a competitor. And so they started out by actually using Crystal reports baked into that product. But when reporting services became a reality, they wanted to, of course, use their own product. And so they wanted to transition a lot of these reports. And so I spent weeks and weeks and weeks working with the requirements and designing some reports. And I had a meeting with the program manager on that team, and she looked at all of the reports, and functionally they were great. The numbers were good, so you know the fit was there and the function was there. And she said, "What I need you to do now is on your way back to your office, I want you to stop by the user experience group that's assigned to our team. They had 2 full-time graphic artists who were part of the user experience, part of the CRM team. And I want you to have a discussion about how to style these reports because we have some design styles or some standards." I said, "Well, that's great. I figured that'd be a half-hour conversation." So I stopped by the office and I sit down and I talk to this guy. And 4 hours later, we have a whole plan of how I'm going to give them prototype reports, and he's going to analyze them, and we're going to kind of map out storyboards and scenarios. And then he's going to give me some palette swatches. And then he's going to generate some graphics that I'll use as tileable fills. And about a month and a half later, I applied all of those styles. And it really helped me realize that that was a really important role. Our company just went through some rebranding. We needed to be very international. We're growing, and we needed to make sure that our brand, the company name, and the logo, and all of these things could kind of stand the test. And so we actually spent a lot of money and hired a marketing firm to analyze our business and come up with a new logo and a color palette and actually a new company name. And that's really important stuff, more than I think we can really appreciate. And that's why it's important to, A, have that conversation with somebody who's good at it, establish those standards before report design, and then just design to them. Use the color palette, use the fonts, use the page layout according to that standard rather than being reactive to it. And this is kind of according to Stephen Few's principles. Use subtle colors for styling the report. The borders, the background fills, those kinds of things should be subtle. Again, when the user glances at the report, the eye shouldn't be drawn to things that aren't informational, things that aren't as important. And then use, and I'll come back to these palettes here, use bold colors for alerts and exceptions and those things that are most important. So as a test, after you've designed your prototype report, take a 5-second snapshot. look at the report, count to 5, look away, and think about, what did I see? Okay, what was my eye drawn to? What information did I get? What did I think about? And if it was something unimportant, then you need to think about restyling. People can distinguish 16 shades of a single color. So within the same palette, just about anybody can distinguish 16 different shades in that same palette. 5 to 8 shades very, very easily. So it's not necessarily the color contrast, it's the contrast of hues within the same palette that are distinguishable, even by colorblind people. So, we get real freaked out about, whether people can distinguish red and green, but even colorblind people can distinguish dark blue from light blue. So if you use the same palette, then it's not a problem. Reminds me of when I grew up in Europe, in Germany, and we would travel all over Europe on weekends, and my dad's colorblind. He confuses red and green. And in Holland, a lot of the traffic lights are arranged horizontally, not vertically like they are here in the States. And I remember, I see the image in my mind right now. We're driving through Amsterdam at 40, 50 miles an hour, and we're racing up to this busy intersection, and the light's red, and we're all screaming. And, so it just really helps me realize that you have to be very mindful of colorblindness. Combine colors and shapes for colorblindness. So in the standard KPI selection, we not only have red, yellow, and green, but we have round red and square yellow and triangular green. I think that's what it is, but they're different shapes. The color palettes that you see here, when I need help with color, I'm not really good with color. When my wife and I will go to Home Depot, and she'll think, oh, hey, I want to repaint the kitchen. Let's go look at the color swatches. And she'll stand there and she'll spend all kinds of time going through all those different palettes, the little paint things that are coordinated. You've got the Ralph Lauren and the Disney and the Martha Stewart and whatever. And there are people who get paid big, big money to figure out that this color goes with this color. That's a job I'd love to have, to figure, that's a good color. This color goes with this color, it doesn't go with this other color. It's a winter and it's a spring. And but there are people who do that, and a lot of them are good enough to actually share their expertise. And one of the sites that actually will collect this information is called colorlovers.com. It's the British spelling of color, colorlovers.com. Great resource, real good place to go. There are people out there who, some of us blog and some of us tweet and, we support our community. These people go camp out at this website and talk about colors. It's what they do. It's a great resource. All right. So, I just did that demo. All right, so let's take a look at some visual reports. These are some examples of various report designs that are examples of where we can lift information from textual form and make it important, make it pop, communicate through pictures rather than communicating through words and numbers. So maps, maps are great. And since the map report item was introduced in 2008 R2, it's been a very, very popular way of developing reports. Now let me just say that there are some things in my report design experience that I consider to be pretty easy, that I can knock out pretty quickly. Since I'm in consulting, I have to estimate my work, and then I have to stick to those estimates. I spend a lot of time with maps. It takes a lot of tweaking and cycles. So the report items that Microsoft acquired a lot of this technology from a company called Dundas Software. Those components were developed to be very, very deeply capable, and they have a lot of properties and things that you can configure. And the map is one of those things. On the surface, you can design a very simple map and maybe do some color fills and that kind of thing, but to take it to the next level, plan to spend days designing a map report, if not more. It's just one of those things that you have to iterate through until you get good at it. If you do it all the time, you'll get better at it, but I do something and then I go off and do something else, and I come back, and I have to go through the same cycle again. I spent several days just getting those bullet graphs the way that I wanted them, just because it's not that it's hard to do, it's just that there are a lot of properties. So the maps are very much that way. So the maps, here you go, Grant. So have to tell you that a few years ago, my friend Grant Paisley down here, Grant lives in Sydney, Australia. I'm in Pacific time, and so I was up till 2 a.m. one night, and I was really tired, and I really wanted to go to bed, but I was obsessively working on some project. Of course, he had just gotten up, and he's real fresh, and had his coffee, and so IM pops up, and Grant says, "Hey, Paul, I want to show you something." He goes, "Can we do a live meeting?" "Oh, okay, I want to go to bed," but yeah, we did a live meeting, and Grant shows me this report, or one just like it, and he says, "Yeah, I came up with a really, really creative use of a line chart." And I was able to compact a lot of information into this line chart and really communicate a theme that not only do we have a trend, but we're above or below the threshold. You see black and red there. And I don't think you can see this very well, but there's actually that little shadow line like in the chart that I had before. And then the last segment of the chart is this line that goes up or down. Anybody want to look at that and tell me what it looks like? Sure, I will. And Grant goes, "It's a sperm report." I said, "It's a what?" He goes, "Yeah, my clients love them." And, it was a very interesting visual. We don't call it that. I've delivered things like this to a lot of we call it the Australian spark line. I think we called it a tadpole report in one iteration. But great visual. I mean, there's a really creative use of tools that are just part of the tool set. So I think what I'd like you to do is just take you through some designs so that we can kind of dig into the tool a little bit. I'm doing this a bit ad hoc, and what I'd like to do is actually just slow down a little bit, and let's talk about what you're trying to do. Now, I actually came with some things to give away. And I went to the product teams and I said, "Hey, do you guys have some swag that you want to get rid of?" And they gave me about 2 billion flashlights to give away. So we're going to find a way to distribute flashlights. So let me just ask some questions. First of all, from a visual perspective, what are your highest needs? Give me some examples of things that you're trying to convey visually that you either don't know how to do or you've struggled with or have some challenge. Back right next to the light post right there, if you could actually come up to the microphone, I'd appreciate it. Okay.
It's sort of combining the map view, success, fail, and duration in a way that can just, you look at it in 5 seconds, you know what's going on, what state's good and bad.
Okay. All right. I don't know that I can quickly demo anything like that, but let's talk about it a little bit. So the way that the maps work is maps are essentially just shapes. So they're vector shapes that can the shape information, which is really just numbers that connect the dots in kind of a bordered shape. That can either be stored in a file in a standard format, or it can be stored as geospatial information in a database. So once those shapes have been rendered, then the map report item also has the ability to put points and lines on top of those things. So it's layered. So let me actually just open up a map report and we'll just pick it apart a little bit. Okay. You can see my project is called Sexy Reports. I'll I'll tell you another quick story since I'm already crossing some lines here. So when I had pitched this abstract, let's see, the title of this presentation is Let's Get Visual. When I had pitched this abstract, the title was supposed to be Visual Report Design, Bringing Sexy Back. And it was accepted, and so I got the acceptance email that says, hey, your abstract's been selected to present a session at TechEd. And then a couple of weeks later, I got another email from one of the marketing people who said, Paul, part of our process is that Microsoft Legal goes through, and they look at all of the titles, and yours didn't make it. So they don't want the word sexy on our website. So we had to change the title. So that's why my project is called Sexy Reports. So let me just open up one of a few map reports I have here. Let's see. I've got, actually I'll open up a couple of them. I have one called, election. All right, so while I'm waiting for these to open, so who has designed map reports with reporting services? Okay, so just a handful of you. So things to know about map reports. First of all, shape information stored into a map file or stored into the map object itself is one approach, and then the actual spatial information stored in the database is another approach. The product only ships with US map shapes. And there are a variety of reasons for that we won't go into, but the product team doesn't want to be in the business of shipping and maintaining all of these different map files. You can get those map files, and then you can also get geospatial information. It's actually available for purchase, and then a lot of it's available for free as well. So that's not trivial to do that. And so that's kind of step one, is figure out how you're going to approach building your map using either of those techniques, and then where you're going to get that data, and plan on that taking a little bit of work to get there. So let me just kind of walk you through a couple of examples of maps that I have. It might give you some ideas about how we can visualize information in the map. Let's start with this population map. So the product just ships with the United States and all of the states in the United States. So this is really easy to do if I just need to say, well, here's a number for Washington, here's a number for Oregon, here's a number for Georgia. It's really easy to do that. You can just stick some text on there, and then we can change the color of each of those shapes. And that's all really easy to do. So if we take a look at, let's take a look at the data set behind this report first. And so you can see that this just returns the name of the state and the value of the population. So really, really simple information. And this is all stored in a SQL Server database. And if we go over to the designer over here, you can see that there's a single polygon layer that represents the map of the United States. And in that polygon layer, oops, I wanted to actually use the properties window. This is where all of the properties are exposed, and there are a bunch of them. I'm looking at the wrong thing, aren't I? Okay, there's my polygon layer, and so you can see that I have the polygon template, which really just kind of defines properties for the whole polygon layer itself. Then you have polygon rules. So you say, how do I want to affect the colors of each of those polygons, each of those shapes? And I can bind these to values. So this is my rule is right here. Here's my data value. So we say, okay, well, somehow the color is going to be affected by this value, and there's this field expression that goes and gets the value from the field. And then I can say, here's a scale of colors, and so use those values to figure out what all of the shades of that color are in between. Or you can have some specific colors and say, if it's in this bucket, it's going to be red. If it's in this other bucket, it's going to be yellow, et cetera. So coloring is one way. And then we can put text on top of that polygon as well. Another approach is to place points on the map. We'll go ahead and preview this report. And so this one's kind of cool. We have little markers that we can put in spots on the report. Now, the way that items are placed on a map is by using these point definitions, and a point is actually an object. If you have latitude and longitude, then you'll actually need to translate that to a point, and you can do that using some SQL. There are some special functions that are part of the geospatial definition in SQL Server, and that code's fairly easy to find. I think I've posted that on my blog. Sean Boone is on the product team, blogs a lot about how to use maps, and he has some examples of that. So here's an example of a Bing map layer, and I had a question in the BI Expo area a little earlier. How much do I have to pay to use Bing? So do I need a subscription to Bing to use this? No, you don't. It's free. Obviously, you need internet connectivity to be able to bring back the Bing map, but you can simply pass the name of a city and tell it what the zoom area is, and it'll go render Seattle, and then you can have all of these points, probably store the latitude and longitude of the point information in a database, and then just bring that back, and then we can plot these points, either shapes or points, like little thumbtacks or whatever you want. You can use your own graphic files as well. So that may give you some ideas. There are a lot of different ways that it can be done. You have to be a little creative. I've had people ask for things like embedded pie charts and gauges, and as far as I know, that's not possible right now in the product. Bob, can you confirm that? I can't do an embedded pie chart, can I? Right. So I did a project that may be similar to what you're asking for last year for a big national bank, and they wanted to see the placement of all of their branches. They had about 800 branches in a region, and they wanted to see the branches, and then the markers that we used for the branches, we varied both the shape of the marker and the color of the marker to represent the type of branch, and then some metrics. I think the shape was the type of branch, whether it was in a store. They have the bank branches in the Walmart stores throughout the Midwest. And so the shape was the type of branch, whether it was standalone or in a store or just an ATM. And then the color was some kind of a KPI status. So, but yeah, I know he is. So you've been very patient. I appreciate you standing there. What's your question?
I'm Rich from the United States Air Force Academy. Just kind of set the context a little bit. We generate something like a report card for a lot of our cadets. So the report card shows a lot of the course information, similar to what you see in a newspaper article where we snake the information from top left down, then back up on a orientation that's landscape. Currently with the report designer, I'm unable to do that. Why is it that, or do you know of a workaround where I can snake the information in a similar manner? And that's my first question. And the second question is, do you have another workaround where I can print duplex with Report Designer? Because currently you cannot print double-sided with Report Designer.
We need to take more questions than this. I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for either of those questions. Let me address the first one first. So snaking columns. There is a feature in reporting services for snaking columns. So on the report object itself, it's either on the report or the body. I think it's the report. There is a columns property, and you can say, I want 2 columns. And you can place, so you then define the body as being half the width of the report and making room for the margin. And then reporting services can, under some conditions, render snaking information. Unfortunately, the HTML renderer doesn't know how to use that capability. So I think the story behind that feature was that when the product was originally architected, one of the objectives was for the reporting engine to be able to use rendering extensions to render in a variety of different formats, but each of those renderers have certain capabilities and compatibilities. And unfortunately, what you're asking for is very difficult to do in HTML. I believe that if you use that technique and you render as PDF, it'll work, though. So it may not be the ideal answer, but I think if you'll try that and try rendering out to PDF, I think you'll be able to get snaking columns. And then you can do duplex? I haven't had any experience. Oh, okay, yeah, just using the PDF viewer. You can use duplex, okay. I would call that a workaround, but all right, so Grant's suggestion is if you're rendering to PDF, then you're actually using the Adobe Reader to print, and so you can do duplex from there. So,
Thank you.
You bet. All right, actually, those were two very good questions, so I'll let you go ahead and distribute these. So I'll plug the book while I have a copy in my hand. So this was Robert Bruckner and I. Robert is a developer lead on the product team. We're the lead authors on this book. This is the SQL Server Reporting Services recipe book. It's not a how-to book. It's not a beginner book. It's a collection of 63 recipes. In other words, how do I do labels? How do I do name badges? How do I do Australian sparklines? And Grant was one of the contributors to the book, and he contributed some really good stuff about analysis services and things like that. That's right, and we'll talk about Report Server. I do have that on a slide, Grant. Okay, so let me go ahead and get to my next slide, and then we'll take time for a little more interaction and questions. So one thing I have learned doing a lot of these presentations is, you know, I used to just prepare a lot of material. I had a whole bunch of slides, and I was always rushed to get through it. It seems like we get a whole lot more out of this if we just kind of have an outline and then talk, interact, and figure out, you know, what challenges you folks have and have some talking points around that. So let me go ahead and finish this out. So let's talk a little bit about self-service reporting. So as we were introducing the topics, we talked about different kinds of reports. We talked about both prepared reports and then self-service reports. So self-service reports is really kind of all the rage, and I think that the definition of BI has really evolved from IT professionals and developers creating dashboards that business executives look at in the morning to enabling business users to navigate and discover and get insightful information about their business. And so BI is one of those terms that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I think that it's very much kind of evolving into self-service reporting, or at least that's a very important component of BI now in the industry. So, see that my first bullet point up here is when we talk about Microsoft BI is SharePoint. And SharePoint is the center of the Microsoft BI universe. Features and capabilities going forward will exist in SharePoint. Now, they're not going to pull the rug out from under capabilities that we have now that we don't need SharePoint for. So you'll continue to be able to use reporting services in native mode without integrating with SharePoint, but all the cool stuff's going to be in SharePoint. And the reason for that is because now we have a platform. It's unified. It's a place that everybody can go to collaborate and share information. And of course, that's what BI is really all about. I don't work for Microsoft, and so I don't necessarily have to wear the marketing hat, but I can tell you very honestly that this is not just a ploy to sell more licensing. This is a way to deliver a very solid capability that wouldn't otherwise be possible. And if you look at the other major vendors in the industry, every one of them deliver a platform. And you know, we don't make great things happen by selling a box of shrink-wrap software. It's a platform, and it has to be a holistic platform. So if you're not using SharePoint now, you should be. And you need to take a serious look at investing in SharePoint. Excel and Excel services. So, you know, Excel is the premier BI tool. That's the tool that everybody knows how to use. And Excel can consume data from a variety of data sources. Now with Power Pivot, we can consume huge volumes of data and aggregate and create relationships between tables from different data sources. et cetera. One of the challenges in the past has been that people who use Excel suck the data down to their desktops, and then they start sharing it around to different people, and then we have this data sprawl problem. And then IT can't govern that data anymore. With SharePoint at the center of that equation, that problem goes away because it's on SharePoint, and then it can be delivered through Excel services, meaning that the user can either use Excel or they can just use their browser to consume that data. So Excel has really become a great tool, and it continues to evolve. And you're going to see parallel features in reporting services and Excel services and other parts and components of SharePoint. Power Pivot, just mentioned. Performance Point is a capability of SharePoint 2010 now that allows self-discovery and allows a lot of dynamic interactivity. That's not really the focus of our discussion, but I just wanted to put it on the list. And then Report Builder for reporting services. The emphasis really is around continuing to press Report Builder going forward. But the product team will absolutely continue to support the Visual Studio shell and the BIDS integrated design environment. And then BI semantic models. So BI semantic models are really the enterprise class version of Power Pivot that you'll see in the next version of SQL Server. Power Pivot's cool now as an add-on for Excel, but the BISM will now take that to the next level. And then finally, Project Crescent. We talk about visualizing data, being able to make data available in a very visual, interactive way. Crescent is really where the product teams are putting a lot of their effort. And you've all seen demos of Crescent. You can't go to a Microsoft conference, in the past year and a half or so and have not seen a demonstration of Project Crescent. Cool stuff. So what's your reaction? Let me know kind of where you are as we talk about this stack. A lot of the questions and comments that I get from a lot of people that I'm working with out in the industry are, okay, it's great that Microsoft gives us all of these choices, all of these capabilities. I mean, it's great that we have all of these things, but I'm overwhelmed with choices. I don't know what to do. I don't know which thing to pick. And at noon, we did an interactive session where we talked about kind of the, strengths and capabilities and trade-offs with these different options. So what has your experience been as you've approached the Microsoft BI stack and have had to make some of these decisions about what tool I use and which one we should skill our people up and provide training and invest in? SharePoint. So tell me about SharePoint. Okay, is this what's your feedback? That's a good thing or a bad thing? Okay, it's a great thing. So the comment was, yeah, we like SharePoint. The idea of having one central place to go to get to my reports and documents and everything else, if I'm filling in the gaps appropriately, it is great news. All right. What's your other feedback about the general BI approach? Yes. Okay, so the question, as I understand it, is how do we integrate disparate business systems? Are we talking about different data sources? Or Well, that's a big question, and I think it's kind of multifaceted. So the question is, if I have business hubs, and I have silos, and I have users in different business areas, and I have systems and applications, and those kind of grow up siloed. If I have reports over here, how do users over here get to those reports? And I think that the simple answer is that's what SharePoint's all about. Through a corporate intranet, I'm going to have sites and silos that are appropriate for that department, but then I also have an enterprise level site and hierarchy of sites. And that takes planning, it takes design, and careful consideration. But I mean, that's the answer, is everyone in the enterprise ought to be able to get to one central store. If you look at the tenets of BI, just the whole concept of bringing data together into one central version of the truth, then having one place to go to get that answer, that keeps everybody aligned. And that's not always feasible. The U.S. can't always be online with Europe. We can't always be online with the Pacific Rim. So sometimes it takes some kind of a replication or synchronization approach to provide that visibility. But I mean, we have more answers to solve that problem now than we ever have. So I don't know if I've given you a crystal clear answer, but I mean, that's the kind of work that I've been doing for years, and we can solve those problems pretty easily. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that the answer to that problem from a Microsoft product's perspective is SharePoint. That's what SharePoint's designed for. It's designed to connect people, to synchronize, to collaborate, to manage workflow, put everything in one place, or at least put things in a place where they're organized and accessible. So, I mean, that's what SharePoint's for. So thank you for your question. Let me go ahead and finish out, since we're talking about some related things, but we're straying off topic just a little bit. I mentioned Project Crescent. Again, Crescent's not replacing anything. Crescent's just yet another thing that you'll have access to through SharePoint Enterprise. I want to make sure that you understand that. That you have to have SharePoint 2010 in order to utilize Crescent. Consult the experts. So we're kind of wrapping up at this point. Edward Tufte and Stephen Few are both great resources. Few has a website with some really good resources with lots of examples of report designs and some of his principles, which I've echoed, namely subtle color palettes, gradations or shades of the same color, lack of borders, lack of 3D effects. Keep it simple is really kind of his mantra. He's critical of a lot of things that are out in the industry. He hates pie charts. He hates 3D. He hates drop shadows. And, I don't necessarily think that, you have to say just, thou shalt never use a pie chart. I think that there's a purpose for that. But you really need to kind of step back and say, is this the right use of my screen real estate? And then, again, Tufte is really more about high-level concepts and kind of historical evidence of the right way to visualize data. Use your screen space efficiently. Don't clutter. Leave some white space. Make it easy on the eye. Deliver the most important message first. Keep it simple. Don't insult the user's intelligence by oversimplifying. Tufte is real big on this. So while we're trying to make things easy, get to that 5-second consumption for our CEO, if you insult your CEO's intelligence, they're not going to use that tool. So use colorful in a meaningful way, and don't overuse visuals and metaphors. So we live in a society where everyone's trying to get our attention. There's a lot of information. And unfortunately, we have to compete with a lot of noise. If you're designing a dashboard, which is going to be the field of your user's view while they're consuming your information, your report, rather than yelling, rather than having to use bright colors and animations and big, bold, loud, painful things, reduce the noise. Okay? And again, borders and shading and that kind of thing. I know it's a simple concept, but it's not something that a lot of people really get. People like to build big, loud, bold things, and unfortunately, they don't always make good dashboards. So reduce the borders, effects, background fills. I don't like 3D charts. If I use them very subtly. So here's some real quick examples of going to extremes. So for a dashboard, is this a good design? No, absolutely not. Why not? What's that? Too many numbers. Okay, engineers would love this stuff. Okay, so it may be appropriate under some circumstances, but an executive business user can't consume this information in 5 seconds. All right, how about this one? You like that one? Okay. Under what conditions is this a good visualization? Never. Well, we had one vote in favor over here. Okay. The paper mill project. They loved this stuff because the people working down on the production floor, they're dealing with this equipment, and they got this. They completely got that because it looked like their equipment. So thermometers and gauges and those kinds of dashboard elements resonate with certain users, certain people who get that, but unfortunately it's not a very effective use of screen real estate. So there's a little bit of glitz here, and you really kind of have to ask yourself, does the term dashboard really mean that it has to look like the CEO's Jaguar? All right, and there's some others that under certain conditions may be overdone. Use gauges and metaphors as appropriate, but consider the best use of screen, space, and readability. How about these 3D charts? What do you think of these? What were the annual sales by territory for France, the UK, Austria, and Germany in 2002 through 2004? Not a clue. They're hidden behind the other bars. And I'm sorry, Grant, that wasn't Austria, it was Australia. All right, how about these? These are actually real reports. They were developed for the Xbox product teams, and they exist out in the Microsoft CorpNet. These are actual reports. The one on the left side, I really like this. I think I've got animations over here on the right side first. So these are actually created with reporting services. You can see a line chart. Here you can see some gauges. Here you see more gauges. But I really love this one. So the report on the left, you can actually navigate using bookmarks within the report. And to get there, you actually click on, oops, one more. You click on these buttons. Isn't that great? Okay, so it's arguable. You know, there's a lot of glitz. There's a lot of, there's a lot of chrome here. But that may be appropriate for this audience. Okay, where they're all about presentation. I'm not advocating this. I'm just saying that you have to balance cool with functionality. Again, form, fit, and function. All right. What do you think about the use of the pie charts over on the left side? Appropriate? Maybe. Some may argue no. But I think that's a very appropriate way to visualize proportion. We see pie charts in a lot of things. And it works for a lot of users. Down at the bottom, we're close to running out of time here, but I'll just mention this. On that CRM project, when I designed a report with pie chart, I had a very small set of data that I was designing against. So I designed this pie chart, I prototyped it, I looked at it, previewed, and it was great. It was wonderful. And then we loaded production data, and then suddenly I wasn't grouping on 12 values anymore, I was grouping on 150 values. So I had 150 separate pie slices. And that didn't work very well. So what we decided to do for all of our pie charts, we did a top 15 and then other. And reporting services actually has that capability now. So you actually have a set of properties that will allow you to call out a slice that represents other. Well, I had to do it by using two union statements and a select statement, or I would use an accept. So it'd be top 15, then it was the accept top 15. And so just working that magic, I was able to do the same thing. The reason that I selected top 15 and other, well, one, I thought it was a good balance. It was a good number. But the primary reason that I chose that, top 15 and other, 16 different values, all of the built-in color palettes for the charts have 16 colors. So I wasn't duplicating any colors. All right, so we're pretty close out of time here, so we'll go ahead and review. So simple is sexy. I think that should be probably the driving force behind any visual design, is keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple. My general pattern is that as I'm adding features, it adds clutter. And then I have to go through this vetting process of kind of trimming everything down and removing the noise, and then remembering, what's my audience, what's important to them, what are the objectives, and then making sure that my delivery of that report is in line with those objectives. So keep it simple. Know your audience and align to their objectives and their perception. Reduce the noise, bring important data to the surface. For executive analytical reports, there should be that 5-second consumption. So test that on every one of your reports. Can they get critical information in 5 seconds? Then spend more time to explore the rest. But don't insult their intelligence. Operational analytical reports should enable deep exploration. You can do that through drill down features. You can do it by drilling through and exposing other information, but don't put it all there at one time. Don't insult the user's intelligence by oversimplifying. Balance, form, fit, and function. And it's all about balance. All right, so with that, I will be down at the business intelligence booths in the expo area from time to time through the rest of the conference, so you're welcome to come by and ask questions. You're also welcome to come up front. I know that we've got another speaker coming up, and we do need to move out of the way, but I'll stick around for a while to field your questions. I also have business cards up here, so if you do want to stay in contact, take note of this real quick. You can download this PowerPoint, but my blog is SQLServerBIblog.com. I put my presentations up there and a lot of examples. I try to blog every week or so. Reporting Services recipe book. And I'm sorry, Grant, I thought I had this. I thought I had Report Surfer. But if you want to see some live examples of a lot of these reports, go to reportsurfer.com. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming. Hi there.